go to our next question here. And it would be, so what features should we talk about more in depth before going on into our demo?
I'll talk to you guys about maybe the crown feature, the crown jewel of our platform, or the crown jewel feature of our platform. So the one thing that we have quote unquote invented that no one else in the world has is how often is solving this issue, right? Which is your HO issue of screen share, which everyone does, right? How often have you screen shared a website, for example, and just to go over the website for whatever reasons, and then whoever you're screen sharing it to, you run into a few problems. Number one, if your upstream bandwidth working from home is bad, they can't even see a very clear version of your screen share, right? It gets all pixelated. That's problem one. Problem two, a bigger problem is sometimes you want to allow them to edit and touch what you're screen sharing, right? Let's say you're screen sharing, again, bad example, potentially a kayak, right? I'm doing my travel plans. I'm screen sharing it with Coreyne, and I want Coreyne to kind of, let me know like when I should be booking the flight, for a company offsite, what have you. Instead of her telling me, well, what if you try Friday at 2 p.m. So instead of telling me to do it or click the blue button, I can give her control of the website, and she can do it. And it almost feels like magic, think of it as interactive screen share. So we can make every screen share instantly interactive without you needing to download anything. And I'll talk a little bit about what is the underlying technology that allows that. But that's really one of the big pieces. Our core technology is the ability to make any website, any web page instantly collaborative and multiplayer, so that multiple people can control it.
No. So it's the power of the shared browser. So you can have co-control over it. It's not just Waikit sharing his screen and me being powerless to not do anything if he asks me a question and me having to walk him through it. It's him sharing his screen and me being able to touch the screen or to move the screen around or to help him walk him through. So that's what we're talking about. Yes. I had one question going back to the transcription. So you also do in live transcription as well. Yeah. So it's for people who are maybe hard of hearing or cannot have, or are like the question about the parenting, you don't have to have the volume on if your kid is working next to you. You can watch the transcription as it goes by. So that gives more accessibility to people as well. So
yeah, that's actually a very important. Thanks for bringing it up. It's important features for a number of use cases and workers. It's machine transcription, so you can run it live so that everyone can see it. You can also run it in the background. So sometimes, if people just want a copy of the transcript, they may not want to see it while they're having the meeting because it could be distracting, what have you. So we allow the host to start transcription in any of those ways. So if you have someone who may have certain accessibility needs or maybe hard of hearing and they need to see that, so that's a great use case where you run it and then as I say a sentence, that sentence gets transcribed in real time, literally half a second later, and it shows up.
Okay. And so just so everybody knows, if you do want Waikit to join your lives, or if you want him to have you speak for your clients, Candace said she'd love to have you speak for client companies of untapped potential. Please feel free to put it in the comments if you want Waikit to help you out with anything. He's here. That's kind of why we're doing the live. It's a resource for everyone. So. And then last question we have again from Meredith: what is your target size company for RemoteHQ?
Yeah, before COVID, it generally would be medium-sized, small and medium-sized companies that are using us. So these generally tend to be consulting firms, design firms, tech companies. Since COVID, that has essentially become like anyone and everyone. So today we have, we still have a lot of the SMBs using us. Anywhere from teams of 5 people all the way to a few hundred in medium-sized enterprises. But we also have some large enterprises who kind of come and depend on our platform right now. One example of that is Manpower Group, for example. So Manpower Group is a Fortune 500 HR software provider and consulting service. Parts of their team use us to essentially train and touch their customers.
So we have another question here, and I believe this is from Chad. Yes, it's from Chad. Is there a lock on the door or a knock on the door feature to avoid interruptions when moving different rooms?
Absolutely.
I was gonna sort of ask this, like, can we crash a room? Like, can we be like, hey, how are you?
Yeah. So the short answer is that there are locks on the room. There are different kinds of locks on the room. So the first lock is guests and hosts, right? So let's say we are all colleagues. We're all members of the workspace. If a guest who is not a member of our workspace knows the URL of another room, the guest can't join that room without anyone being present in that room. So the guest just can't willy-nilly. Again, it's the same metaphor as the office, right? If you're not invited into an office, you can't get past the security guard or the receptionist to get into a conference room. Same idea. So then the second question is, what about locking out certain colleagues, right? So HR could be having a salary conversation with an employee. You don't want someone barging in when they're having very sensitive conversations. So you can create a private room for that. If you're not on the white list of the private room, you're not invited to the private room, even if you're a member of the workspace, you can't enter that room.
That's great. Speaking about privacy, so how does RemoteHQ ensure user privacy and security?
So the first thing we do is everything is end-to-end, is encrypted end-to-end. All the communications, video, audio, all those things are encrypted end-to-end. AES 256 standard high-level encryption. All the application, all the apps that we bring in terms of communication, as well as the things that we store in our cloud, they are also encrypted.
That is awesome. I know that's a big question that everybody had, is like the privacy and the security. And you're constantly working to make sure that you're ever more increasing your security and your privacy. And like I said at the beginning, is that you're ever more working to increase the user interface and the user accessibility and bringing more and exciting apps to RemoteHQ. Question from our audience, from Julie. This is amazing. Is this product accessible for the Caribbean?
Yes, it is accessible worldwide, anywhere. We have a number of users coming from the Caribbean. I'm trying to get more folks in the, now that I'm in Puerto Rico, trying to get more folks here use it. We've got, users all around the world, Europe, Asia, a lot in the US, obviously.
Yeah, so those that follow my feed saw that I had that poster, that poll up about digital nomadism. It was a month or so ago when Waikit and I first kind of connected. He was in Boston and now he's in Puerto Rico. So I just wanted to mention that, like the digital nomadism. I think this is great for digital nomadism and obviously for remote work. So another question from Asmara, what happens to the data when a room is no longer required?
Yeah, you can delete the room. So so you can actively delete the room. If you delete the room, all the data gets deleted. We don't store anything when you do that. If you don't delete the room, it will always be there. Obviously, the other question we get asked a lot is, well, what if I don't need the workspace anymore? Coreyne, for example, used multiple workspaces, one workspace with each client, for example. So, let's say you have a workspace with a client and that client engagement has ended and you don't really need the leave behinds and all the data. You can just delete the entire workspace. Everything in that workspace gets deleted. Nothing gets stored.
Awesome. Julie wants to talk to you afterwards. So.
Sure.
So I want to know, what are you planning next? Oh, before I go into this question, you also have Asian characters, right? The Asian characters have come up now. So
yeah, so we have quite a number of users out in Asia, especially in Japan and Korea. So and they use our shared browser a lot. So they load up different websites in Japan or Korea with Japanese characters or Korean characters. We support those now because those are not English characters, and we need special support. So we just rolled out support for that 2 months ago.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. So what are you planning next for RemoteHQ? I know Canva's going on there because I requested it. So
Yeah, so no, more apps, right? So Canva is one of the ones that we're looking at, as well as other apps that I think that are popular, that are often used. Notion, Coda, Prezi is another one that we get asked once in a while.
did you mention
And
Asana?
Asana is actually one that we get asked a lot.
Mhm.
And so these are some of the ones that we're gonna add on. We don't have timing yet, but I can tell you some of the other add-ons that we have timing for. So Salesforce integration, given the fact that a lot of our users use us for customer facing, either sales demos or sales pitches or support, they need whatever happens in that session. All the notes and metadata gets pushed back into the CRM. A lot of times it's salesforce.com. So we're doing a salesforce.com integration right now so that all the data exhaust that gets captured gets pushed back into CRM.
So Julie asked the same thing I did, is will you be integrating with Asana? And the answer is eventually you will be.
Yeah, we've been looking at to see if they have APIs. So a lot of these integrations, a lot of times depend on if they have public APIs. So if they have public APIs, we do the integration ourselves. If they don't have public APIs, we essentially try to talk to them, we approach them and try to get access so that we can bring them in within our platform. So we have an early conversation. We have early conversation with Asana right now. They have been fairly busy since the IPO a few months ago.
Mm-hmm. And so what are your predictions for the rest of 2021? And how will you and your team and RemoteHQ technology be there to support organizations?
We talk to a lot of folks in the remote work, which is everyone, right? Both folks who have done remote work for years, and as well as the people who just, by necessity over the last 12 months. When we talk to them just in terms of, hey, when COVID is over, what would happen to your work cadence and where you're going to work? Consistently, we're starting to see a common thread, which is, if you are small to medium-sized companies, I think a lot of them are just going to have very flexible work-from-home schedules. If you are bigger companies, like you have your Microsoft or Salesforce.com, you have a big building and offices that you already paid for. What I'm starting to hear from folks is they're going to turn those offices, or a lot of them, into WeWork, to behave like WeWork, so that you have a floating desk, a floating chair. You may work from home twice a week, and then when you're in the office for 3 days a week, there's a reservation system, and you go in there and they give you a chair and a desk, and that's where you're going to work for today, and then tomorrow you come back and maybe a different slot. So people are looking into that, and I think that's kind of where I think the big companies are going to start looking more like WeWork over time.
Great, thank you. And you saw the statistic that I just put up, is that by 2025, 36.2 million Americans will be working remotely. So get on the train now. This, RemoteHQ. So we're coming to like our last 10 minutes. I do have a bit of summary for everyone, but if you have a question for Waikit, or a question about RemoteHQ, or even a question for me, now's the time to ask it before we summarize and say goodbye. So I think we had a few more comments come through. Julie asks, will migrating with Microsoft affect using Zoom?
No. We have users using us with Zoom. So they would use Zoom for video conferencing, just like with Teams. They would use Zoom with video conferencing, and then they would turn off our video conferencing in the room. So collaboration happens in RemoteHQ, communications happens in Zoom.
One of the questions I had is that, so I noticed that when you go in, some of the screens are, the screen is black. Is there a reason for that?
You mean like shared browser, for example?
Right, where the shared browser, is that because we're in incognito?
No, it's because the shared browser is running in the cloud, in the different location than your local computer. So when you resize, it's reconnecting from your computer to that cloud, that browser in the cloud. And sometimes it's also a function of your bandwidth. So if your bandwidth is not great, it takes a little bit longer, but usually it takes no more than 1 or 2 seconds. If you have a good if you have good bandwidth and your computer is fast enough, it's fairly instantaneous. Yeah.
Okay, because one of the reasons I was asking is because when I was in the last time, I was like, oh, there's a lot of black here. Can I change my color? Can I make it like green? Because green's my favorite color. Can I have banners? Can I do? Go
yes,
ahead.
I see what you mean. Yes, the black is the background. This is actually something we're spending time talking. Literally just this past week. That the short answer is yes. We want to allow people to customize their room experience in more ways than just swapping out our logo and swapping their logo. And so today you can swap out our logo and swap in your logo. You don't have to pay extra for that. That's part of the package. But we want to allow people to, like Coreyne said, if you want to change the background color, you should be able to. So we want to enable that soon.
Oh, that is awesome. So Waikit, thank you so much for joining me and my audience today. I greatly appreciate it. I knew about RemoteHQ and I've been working within it, but like the questions that you answered and the things that you talked about today, I just love learning so much about what intelligent minds you guys have and how much you're thinking about how we can, make the future of work great for everyone. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.